by NFC East standards. Like, oh my God, it's insurmountable. A whole football game. No, they're not running away with anything, and that has a lot to do with their schedule, although when you look at the schedule, you don't see that's an unwinnable game, like Baltimore right now. A couple weeks ago, you go, man, the Giants are going to get killed, like a month ago. Not anymore. That's a winnable game. Arizona's a winnable game. You know, these are games they can win, but when you look at their schedule, you figure maybe they're 2-2, something like that. And if they're a little bit better than that, great. Cleveland's playing very well right now. You'd like the Giants over the Cowboys last week of the season. But 3 of their next 4, the Giants will be underdogs. And the Washington football team, who, like the Giants, has been trending better and better as the season goes on, who, like the Giants, had a culture change before the season started. Although in Washington's case, they had more of a known commodity as a head coach. In the Giants' case, they were hoping that they picked the right guy. But in any event, Washington's schedule's not as bad as the Giants, although it's not a cupcake schedule. The main thing I notice is that for the Giants and for Washington, the schedule doesn't look as tough as it used to because our perception of them has changed. You know, when you think differently about your football team and you look at a game like Arizona or Baltimore or Cleveland and you think your team is really no good. If it was the Jets, you go, gonna lose. Unless you see a Bengals pop up somewhere or maybe a Panthers, you go, maybe that's a winnable game. But the way the Giants and Washington are playing, you look at those same games, you go, they have a chance to win. For example, today, Pittsburgh, right? That's an undefeated team. And I think because they beat the Ravens, but the way they beat them, Tomlin really came down on them. Maybe they don't fall into a trap, Pittsburgh against Washington. But otherwise, that's a kind of a trap game. Washington doesn't have a good record, but they do play defense. They've been playing better than advertised this year. Meantime, the Steelers are coming off a Ravens game where obviously the emotions get up, and as Ryan Clark says, best time to play the Steelers or the Ravens is after they play each other, right? All of a sudden, I look at that game, I go, I think Pittsburgh's going to beat Washington. But I think partly that has to do with motivation. In other words, that's not such a bad win anymore. That's kind of a quality win. So, Stephen A., I don't see the Giants with something like a 2-game plus lead in that division. I think it's going to be tight.
Max, I got to tell you something, man. I mean, listen. I can't definitively say this, but I think it's possible. I think it's possible that they can run away with the NFC East. First of all, the Eagles are trash. We're just there. They're trash. All right, that's number one. All right, you get them out of the way. Then you got Washington, okay? Washington's got Pittsburgh. They've got San Francisco. They've got Seattle. They've got Carolina on their schedule. I mean, Washington could end up folding for the rest of the season. We can't summarily dismiss that their defense is real. Offensively, they're challenged. We understand that. So you got to look at it from that perspective. The Dallas Cowboys are the Dallas Cowboys. What can go wrong will go wrong. And it'll start tomorrow night even more so snowballing because Lamar Jackson will probably be back. The Baltimore Ravens playoff lives are on the line, and they're going up against the Dallas Cowboys. So what a convenient element on their schedule. So I'm going to look at it from that perspective. And then last but not least, I got to take this into account. Max Kellerman, did I not come on the air weeks ago and specifically state this dude, Joe Judge, looks like the right man for the job? Every single week we have watched the New York Giants, they have improved. Whether they had Saquon Barkley when he goes down, whether they had Daniel Jones, ultimately when he goes down, when you watch the New York Giants, this guy, Joe Judge, seems to be the right man for the job. I can't say enough about the guy thus far. They play hard all the time. They improve every single week. And considering where they were and what we considered them to be, and to watch them go out and play the way that they play, particularly on the defensive side of the ball, they're a top 10 defense, number 8 overall, top 5, meaning number 4 against the run. These brothers come and they play and they get after you. So you're going to be in a dogfight. You're going to have an opportunity to win games because that defense usually gives you that opportunity. And when you combine that with the ineptitude that exists within the rest of the NFC East, not even taking into account their schedule, just what you've seen thus far, and then you take into account the level of competition Washington is going to have to go against, the fact that the Dallas Cowboys are who they are, and we know that the Eagles are trash, I definitely think the NFC East is ripe to be had by the New York Giants and Coach Joe Judge and his defensive coordinator.
Early Christmas present for Giants fans like Jay. They've now won 4 in a row. Colt wasn't the unreal McCoy. He wasn't great. He was the real McCoy.
He was serviceable.
No doubt.
That's all we
105
needed.
yards, touchdown, and a pick. They've won 4 in a row. Half game up on the Washington football team, who plays tonight. No matter what happens, the Giants have the tiebreaker over the Washington football team. And Jay, being the resident Giant fan, I think everybody's been impressed by Joe Judge. Remember, this team was 0-5, then 1-7. Key said they'd make the playoffs at 1-7. I scoffed. He's going to laugh last. But
Maybe.
But you, even as a Giant fan, are really surprised they find themselves in this position.
I put a tweet yesterday before the game started, Key. I was like, hey, Russ, hey, Seahawks, just take it easy on us. Let us continue to build confidence as we go into Week 14, because I expected Seattle to blow us out. And all of a sudden, I'm watching a game. Wayne Gallman has a 60-yard run in the third. We're up in the ball game. We're pounding the ball on the ground. It's like we made some adjustments into the second half. And just I was kind of – I don't know if I walk away from this game being so impressed by the Giants or more just shocked and embarrassed for Seattle.
No, you got to be –
everybody back. Everybody's healthy. Carlos Hyde. I mean, think about all the people that they have back. I mean you go through the list of names of all the players that they have. Chris Carter comes back, Jamal Adams, Shaquille Griffin. Their whole team is there, and you expect them to take that next step. And Russell Wilson just didn't seem like Russell Wilson at all.
You got to be impressed with the Giants just because of they lose Daniel Jones, so you immediately think, oh, God, they lost a quarterback. Pretty much they might as well pack it up and look to do something else. But they stayed the course, and they went all the way to Seattle, and they clipped the Seahawks. Even though Seattle, much like Jay Will said, they got everything there. It's a better football team, but the Giants didn't quit. They didn't feel sorry for themselves. Saquon Barkley has not been a part of their team all year long. They don't feel sorry for themselves. They just continue to go out there and be resilient, playing well, doing the sort of things that championship caliber teams do. And I think when you look at, Joe Judge and you look at some of his antics early on, the first thing you think that this football team is lost. Oh, God, this team is they're not going to be worth anything.
Zubin.
And now all of a sudden they're taking on the same personality as their head coach. As long as it continues to work.
Let's hear from their head coach. This is Giants head coach Joe Judge on the difference from that 0-5, 1-7 start to where this club is now.
It's not just those final 2 minutes. It's what you do the entire game to put yourself in position and capitalize on it. What plays were you able to make earlier in the game that you got to go ahead and then execute down the stretch as well? I just think our team's executing, a lot better down the stretch. They've made a lot of improvement. A lot of that's from, just comfort of being around these coaches for a length of time, building on the multiples that we have within the game plan on a weekly basis and the adjustments we can make on the sideline or in the locker room, on a kind of quick turnaround basis.
We should quickly mention, Key, and Jay, for you too here, obviously as a resident Giant fan, one thing that was notable is that Joe Judge did not scale down the playbook for Colt McCoy. That's rare when you have a backup, because obviously you got a veteran backup here. It's a little bit different, but I think that certainly aided the cause as well.
Well, look, you don't have to scale down the playbook. When you got a guy who's played, like you said, a veteran, veteran quarterbacks are there to kind of teach the young guy how to be a quarterback in the National Football League. And so he's game planning and preparing this as if he was the starter every single week, even though he's not the starter. So you don't have to scale it back. He can run the offense. I mean, it wasn't like he had crazy gaudy numbers. He had pedestrian numbers. I mean, when you look at it, it was like, it's so funny because when you look at teams that are in playoff hunt right now and you look at some of the quarterbacking that's going on outside of the big boys, all the quarterbacks are just like 160 yards, a couple touchdowns, and making zero mistakes. That is what you need.
And give a ton of credit to Giants defensive coordinator Patrick Graham. It's not a name that we have mentioned. Jay mentioned it. The Seahawks were limited to 1 touchdown. Russell Wilson sacked 5 times and a couple turnovers forced. Start by talking about the weekend, so Key doesn't scold me, and then we'll start talking about Jay's Giants.
Thank you, Russell. Thank you, Russell Wilson.
Thank you. I just like to not dive right into football.
Yeah.
We've been away from each other for 2.5 days, so you like to, try to figure out what everybody, weekend was like. That Friday, their Saturday, Sunday.
I just watched sports this weekend because I really wanted to see, now that we're getting down to the nitty-gritty of college football, which we'll talk about in a little bit, I thought it was time to put a real magnifying glass on it. And then every time you turned around yesterday in the NFL, there was something to watch. But before we dive right into it, what did you guys do?
It was good. College football was good. The weekend was good. Got a chance to watch a little hoops. College hoops was cool.
Oh, what games you watch?
I watched a little bit of the Gonzaga game.
Gonzaga canceled. Must have been something else.
No, not the
Damn, Zubin.
Sorry.
Just let him breathe.
no, the Gonzaga game.
It was canceled.
They canceled
Saturday.
it.
Well, what the hell was I watching?
Texas Villanova played.
Texas Villanova.
Got you.
Coach was on there.
Yep, Jay Wright.
Jay Wright was on there.
Kentucky's 1-3 for the first time in 20 years. Maybe you saw that.
What other game was I watching? It was another little weak college basketball game that was on. I just kind of passed through it. College football I watched. Ohio State, I figured that was going to happen the way it happened.
Good win, boys. Good win.
I couldn't. What else did last night I watched a USC game, but that got out of control early.
Yeah.
I watched a little bit of the UCLA game, Arizona State game.
Hey, by the way, Chip Kelly for the first time in his UCLA career is over 500 with the Bruins. First time in his career.
What is he, like, 3-2 or something?
3-2. That's exactly what they are. That's exactly what they are.
What else? And then Christmas tree shopping yesterday. So
Yeah. Did you get one?
Yeah.
What size are you? Because you're tall.
No,
you're
I
a tall Christmas tree.
Well, my daughter picked it. It was 12 feet and